What up, everybody? What's up? What's up? Kerry Teagle, Nathaniel Taylor, Dak Hater in the house, everybody. Just kidding. I mean, I'm not, but he is. Danny Easley, Jeff Capone, Barry Griffith, Henry Munoz, Chris Bennett, Robert Anchetta. Everybody in the house, what up, what up? Everybody hit share. A lot to get to today because yesterday Facebook was all offline, so I was like ready to go for this big show on Earl Thomas and everything, and no show yesterday, and that was not my doing. That was Mark Zuckerberg's doing, so my apologies there. But today we'll give you everything plus everything else. Tavon Austin signs. So more of the same. Cowboys have spent really all of free agency bringing back their own guys, with the exception of one guy, DeMarcus something. DeMarcus something. I can't. It's some other. I mean, Tavon Austin's back. Cam Fleming's back. Jameis Olawale is back. They brought in Connor McAvoy or something like that to be their tight end. They all kinds of moves. As for Tavon Austin, and I'm seeing the Dallas Cowboys America's team page, looks like Ellen Borowski, Henry Gallardo, William White, John Martin, everybody in the house there. Chris Smith says Texas is going to beat KU. Perhaps. They could very well. They need to. Kerwin Roach will be back, so that'll help. But yeah, they need to. But until then, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. And I actually like Texas, but tonight I will not be rooting for Texas, obviously, as a KU graduate. So Tavon Austin is back, which isn't a surprise, nor should it be a surprise, considering, he's been working out at the Star in Frisco. So, Mike Fisher was the one from 105.3 The Fan, of course, my cohort over there, saying, he's a guy that's a free agent that's working out at the facility. Traditionally that means that he's going to be back. I don't look at Tavon Austin as a Cole Beasley replacement. He's not. He's a completely different type player. So, the Cowboys drafted Ryan Switzer to play the role that they had for Tavon Austin. It's not a slot receiver. It's, he kind of a web back, as Stephen Jones called him last year, but the ability to jet sweeps, use him in the backfield, use him over the top and 9 routes at the X spot. I mean, so I don't think his skill set is geared towards playing out of the slot. I don't. We look at guys that have speed that are undersized as being that, and he has both of those things, but it's not the same. So I think his role won't change, nor should it, because I don't know that they can trust him to be able to stay healthy, because that's just been sort of an issue he's had in his entire career. He had a good year for the Cowboys last year. He just didn't play enough, and he was able to take the top off, and that's what they need him for. They need him to be exactly what he was last year, which is not the slot receiver. So. And I don't think I don't think they look at him as a Cole Beasley replacement. And so I know, again, a lot of people. There's a lot of light coming in. It's very sunny here today, which is nice, but you can tell it's kind of impacting. Sorry, I'm just gonna bow out. There we go. That's just sorry. So I don't look at Tavon as a Cole replacement, and you shouldn't either. I think they're going to continue to use him in the way that they will, and that they'll look for other areas to replace Cole Beasley with. Sean Moore says trade Tank for picks. He needs surgery, so he's not as easily tradable because of that. All right, so let's start here. Opening rant. By now you know, about an hour ago, 25 hours ago, like 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Yesterday we learned that Earl Thomas was not going to be signing with the Cowboys. Officially, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, rated about $13.5 million per year, something like that. And that's, if you're disappointed, I know a lot of Cowboys fans were disappointed because this was a big free agent they were after, and a guy that the chase was on for years with him, right? It seemed like a match made in heaven, a position of need, UT guy, played with Chris Richard, right? Like it just seemed like it was inevitable. The problem was, would you be willing to pay $13.5 million for a 30-year-old for 4 years? That's tough, right? So Brian Walker says, "Did the Cowboys offer Thomas anything?" Yeah, I think they gauged interest at the combine, and this is what we learned, right? Like they went to the combine, met with his agent, and we're like, "What are you looking for?" And I think they heard a number where it was like, oh, good luck. If you don't get that, come talk to us. So I don't think the Cowboys made an offer. I think they knew what they were going to offer was not close to what he wanted. And I think based on that, and they basically were like, if you were looking for a little bit cheaper, maybe you can call us up. And I don't know where the Cowboys were. Maybe they were willing to go to $10 million a year, but I doubt they were. Maybe they were. Maybe. But certainly not, 4 years, 13 and a half, 14 million, whatever it is, plus the guaranteed money. It's a lot of money for a safety that's 30. Granted, a really good player. But, the reality is, Jesse Garcia says, we're more than disappointed at this point. Yes, much needed player to get us over the playoff hump. And that's where I disagree. And that's kind of the main topic of today. But Earl Thomas is a great player. He's a game changer. He's a dynamic player, and they just don't have that at safety, and they probably need to upgrade from Jeff Heath. But if you're disappointed that the Cowboys didn't sign Earl Thomas, then you haven't been paying attention. They were never going to sign Earl Thomas, not unless Earl Thomas wanted pennies on the dollar relative to what he was available for on the market. This is what the Cowboys are philosophically. This is what the Cowboys have been philosophically. So if you're surprised by it, you shouldn't be. Why are you surprised by it? Why are you surprised by this? This is what the Cowboys do. This is what they do. And you know what? It's probably the right philosophy. But what they do is, so many of you complained about Jerry Jones, the GM. Many of you still complain about Jerry Jones, the GM. Jerry needs to give up being the GM and hire a real GM. I get those comments all the time. He has, and he did. So he hired Bill Parcells. Okay? He gave up being the GM. He hired Bill Parcells. Now, he worked with Bill Parcells, but that was sort of the, okay, I'll hire a real GM. And what did he do? He told Stephen Jones, hey, go study under him. This is like an internship for you. Go figure it out what he's doing and how to build a successful team, and that's what we're going to do. This has been their guiding philosophy since then. Parcells left, Steven took over, and it's the same philosophy. Most of their resources in terms of personnel are devoted to the draft. They draft, they develop, they sign those guys, and then they let other guys walk. They've been really good at that, guys. They've been really, really good at drafting. Like, better than probably 95% of the teams in the NFL. When you look simply at snap counts, right? Just look at the amount of snaps that their draft picks play. Like, when you get 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks to consistently contribute tons of snaps, like, that's insane. That most teams aren't able to do that. The Cowboys are, especially like 5th. Like, they are. Dorrance Armstrong last year. I mean, look at Anthony Hitchens. Is Anthony Hitchens a great player? No. You know how many snaps that guy played? If you can play at a high level to get you on the field to play 100 snaps in a season, you're a 5th round pick, that's really good. You're getting all pro guys in the 1st round, that's really good. So the Cowboys, since Parcells, they've drafted well, they put the majority of the resources into drafting, and then they play the bargain bin. It's what they do, guys. This is what they do. They play the bargain bin. They are not going to overpay for past performance and past production. They're not going to do it. They're only going to bring on young football players. That's it. They are not spending money on old guys. They're not bringing in Earl Thomas. They're not bringing in 30-year-olds and paying them $14 million a year for the things that they have done. Now, do I agree with the philosophy? Not entirely. No, I mean, I do think that you do have to, at some points in time, extend yourself behind your means to perhaps make a splash. But here's my ultimate thought on this, and I truly believe this. Do we think the Cowboys personnel is holding them back? Or do we think it's something else? Because I think that's really important here. Are the Cowboys held back by their personnel? Like, is the reason they didn't beat the Rams their personnel, or is the reason that they didn't beat the Rams coaching? Do they have championship level personnel? Everybody watching this, do you think that the team they have right now is good enough to win a championship? Or No, it's not, and they needed to upgrade it. They needed to upgrade. And I mean, obviously, every team has holes. I mean, teams that the Browns have holes, right? The Browns have won free agency. The Browns and Raiders have had great free agency periods. Raiders signed my guy Tyrell Williams. Shout out Tyrell Williams. He's going to be a stud out there with Antonio Brown. Hopefully, they have somebody who can throw him the football. Bob Hack says the damn coaching is holding us back. Peter Boot, which I know you told me how to pronounce it, and now I forgot how to pronounce it. Ray Pierce, coaching is holding them back the most. Both. Bob Hack says you have to mix and match. No, I agree. I mean, if I were running the Cowboys, I would do what they were doing, but I would certainly, as you said, I wouldn't just it's all or nothing, right? I would at some point extend myself in free agency, but that's not what they do, and that for the last decade, basically, that's what they told us they're not going to do. So we shouldn't have believed that they were. But the point remains: is it their personnel holding them back, or is it their coaching? Is their personnel holding them back, or is it their coaching? I believe the Cowboys have the pieces on the field, the players, the talent to win a championship. I do. I mean, they just won the division and went to the divisional round. It's not like it's that far-fetched. They weren't a 4-win team. They've drafted well. They have all pros at a lot of different positions. Zeke's a top 2, top 3 running back, maybe the best. I'd argue the best running back in football. I mean, they've got arguably the best guard in football in Zach Martin. They've got arguably the best center in football in Travis Frederick. Amari Cooper's, he did enough last year that leads you to believe he's a top 5 receiver potential, top 10 receiver. Like they have Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch are both stars in the making, all pro type players. Myron Jones, they have tons of talent. Talent's not their issue. Their issue is coaching. They have championship level players with not championship level coaching. That's the problem here. So, I think, would it have been nice for them to sign Earl Thomas? Yeah. Would it have been nice for them to go out in free agency and do something they don't do, which is go spend some money, take some risks? Yeah. But it's not. That's not why they signed Earl Thomas. That hasn't helped their coaching, which we've talked about this all off season. They need to be more flexible. They can't just be like, we're a running style team. That's what we do. We can't have styles anymore, right? Your style has to be a chameleon. Blend into your surroundings. I mean, that's the Patriots and Rams. That's what they do. 2 teams that just met in the Super Bowl. That's what they do. They're not a downhill running style team. They are whatever they need to be on that given Sunday that helps them win. Whatever they need to be in that given quarter that helps them win. So, yes, could they upgrade their talent? Yeah, they could. But that to me isn't what's holding them back. It's not. And as a Cowboys fan, you are obviously well within your right to be upset and frustrated that they aren't doing more in free agency. But that's not what's holding them back. It's their coaching that's holding them back. That's Romero Walker on the Dallas Cowboys or on the Ari Temkin radio page. Shout out to you. Says, Coach. I mean, I think most people would agree, right? Like, we could argue, are they championship level personnel or not? I mean, I again would maintain they have a really good roster with tons of talent, and most of those guys they've drafted. Like there are very few teams, if 1 or 2 other than the Cowboys, that have drafted as well as the Cowboys have. And that's the thing is Cowboys fans look at this and think, well, it's been 25 years of this, and it hasn't led to results. Well, it hasn't been 25 years, right? It was a decade first, where Jerry was the GM and he was making a lot of bad decisions. They were drafting horribly, and they signed tons of bad contracts. And we can go through. There was just bad trades, Joey Galloway and Roy Williams. Just bad. So, it's not 25 years. It's 10 years of being miserable and horrible decision making, and then the Parcells, Stephen Jones era, where they finally decided, hey, it's important to draft. Hey, it's important to spend. Find bargain bin kind of guys, and not just because you don't want to overspend in the salary cap, because you want to find guys that are motivated. Sometimes guys get paid big time money and they're no longer as motivated as they were to get them that contract. So, from a Cowboys fan's perspective, yeah, you look at this and you're like, okay, It's been 25 years, and there's it doesn't seem like there's urgency, despite we hear the fact that they're talking about urgency, but then it's like, but you're not signing anybody. You're like the only team to not make any moves in free agency. What do you mean urgency? But I think the thing, like, they have personnel, and the personnel is really good, and then they have coaching, and their coaching is not as good, and so it's like, that's the problem, is their coaching. And I guess that's where the rubber meets the road here, right? Because the Cowboys are going to make a change at coach if this guy, Jason Garrett, doesn't become what he hasn't ever been. Jason Garrett doesn't become a guy that's more flexible. That's you could use the word innovative. I've said multiple times, you don't have to use the word innovative. You can just use flexible. It's probably a better word because it's not always innovative. It can be basic, simplistic. It's just basically adjusting to adjustments. It's constantly adjusting and constantly changing who you are and what you're doing based on what the defense is giving you. The Cowboys last year were like, we're going to line up and we're going to run what we run regardless of what you do because we're going to beat you at it because we're better at it. And it's not that works to win regular season games. It's gotten them 2 division titles in 3 years. In the year that they didn't win a division title, they were 9-7, right? Which sometimes can get you to the playoffs. 9-7 got the Eagles to the playoffs this year. Last year, 9-7 didn't get the Cowboys to the playoffs, right? So that's a pretty good 3-year run based almost strictly on talent and then the motivational piece that Jason Garrett brings to the table. But the ability to win in the playoffs is way more about being flexible, multiple, and making adjustments. And that's why they haven't gotten past the division round of the playoffs. Dante Holmes says, Dallas will not win a Super Bowl if you can't pressure the quarterback, stop the run, stop the deep pass, or score in the red zone. Then we also have horrible coaching and play pitiful situational football. Oh yeah, I mean, you're not going to win any games if you can't pressure the quarterback, stop the run, stop deep passes, or score the red zone. Are you speaking specifically to the Rams game? Because they were a bad red zone offense the majority of the year, but they had pretty good defense at times last year and on and on and on. But to be like, well, they're not going to win a Super Bowl because these are the things they couldn't do. They could do them a lot in the season. The only thing they couldn't do all year was score in the red zone. So you're kind of mischaracterizing the type of team they had. But it's not that they couldn't stop the run. It's that they couldn't be flexible enough to be able to stop the run because that's exactly because the Rams. Sean McVay was like, all right, let's watch tape on the Cowboys. Oh, okay, they've got 2 young linebackers. This will be interesting. So all I have to do is not allow my personnel packages and my formations to tell those young linebackers what we're going to do. Right? So Sean Lee's value is he's a good player, but he can't stay healthy. But part of what makes him a good player is he's very smart. So he understands what offenses are trying to do. He doesn't have to guess based on who's out there and what the formation is. Well, Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith are young linebackers, and they had a really good year, but that was because they were able to read what the offense was going to do based on personnel package, based on what everybody thinks the Cowboys are. Easy to read, right? So if you come out with certain groups, personnel packages, you come out and look a certain way, right? It was obvious they're going to run. So now Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch knew what they were going to do. So in the Rams game, Sean McVay took that away. The reason that the Cowboys got gashed by the Rams in the run game was because Sean McVay ran the same exact formation every play. It looked like a running play. So that's what Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch thought. So they were, to use a poker term, on tilt. That was the issue in that game. So it's like, well, they couldn't stop the run. No. They couldn't be flexible. That's the issue. That's not they couldn't stop the run. It's not like all of a sudden a team that was great against the run all year couldn't stop the run. It was because Sean McVay looked at what the Cowboys did and said, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to be able to beat this team because I know how to, because they're not going to change. And then as we mentioned, because on offense they were so committed to the run, they ran 11 times for 7 yards at the second half. It kept the clock running even though they were down 2 scores the majority of the half. And that was the problem. They didn't throw enough. Christopher Lamb says the issue starts from the top. Jerry won't give up the team for headstrong coach. Is Sean Payton a headstrong coach? I think he would. I think the issue with Jerry is, I think the issue with the Cowboys is they've been great in terms of figuring out the right players to have. They've been horrible in terms of finding the right coach to have, and they've probably valued the wrong things when it comes to Garrett. And I think also they've probably put too much stock into longevity for him, which, again, you look at the early 2000s, and they were a mess because of Jerry. They didn't draft well, they had bad contracts, and they kept hiring and firing coaches. So they overcorrected. Okay, we keep hiring and firing coaches. Let's keep a coach for a long time. Let's cultivate a young coach and watch him grow and develop and become a better coach. I don't know that he has in any way. Now, he has evolved in certain ways. He became more aggressive. We established that. I mean, in the Rams game, he went 3 or 4 fourth downs, right? That's a different style. That's a different type of Jason Garrett, right? So, but I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is, they need to be able to be more reactive and flexible, and probably more specifically on offense. Charles Morris says, what does all in this year mean? We've done no different in free agency or anything else the last 10 years. We could get one free agent or two. Not everybody else's backups. Well, it's a fair question. Again, what position is holding them back? Strong safety, right? They probably should upgrade at strong safety. I mean, sure. Should they spend $14 million to do it? No. Are you guys crazy? For a position that has been completely devalued to spend 14, it's about finding value within the salary cap. So you have to look at, okay, what's the average salary at this production level for this player? That's how you have to value it, right? So $14 million for a safety? The Redskins are so stupid. You people that want Landon Collins at $14 million? No. It's a horrible move. Tyrann Mathieu, the Cowboys could have had him last year at $7 million. Tyrann Mathieu had the same, I don't know what happened, but Tyrann Mathieu signed for $7 million at the end of close to training camp last year with Houston. After having a year at Arizona is pretty good. I mean, he basically the exact same year with Houston and then doubled his money? No, it's crazy. All right, so they should upgrade at strong safety. I think they will. There's guys still available. I think they will. They're finding value at that position. I don't disagree with that approach. I do not think their talent is holding them back. It's the coaching that's holding them back. Talent is not going to override coaching. It's not. You can win with anybody if you have the right coaching. The problem is they don't have the right coaching. And Garrett is good at a lot of things. He's not good or hasn't shown an ability to be flexible. So back to the question. How are they going to be going all in? I thought maybe that meant they would go spend in free agency. Clearly it's not. So what does it mean? Well, it means, I guess, Garrett's job's on the line and that they want Garrett to do something he's never done, to be somebody who's never been, right? That's what they've been. Jerry Jones has used the word flexible after I've used it. So I didn't steal it from Jerry, okay? He stole it from me. Maybe, but probably not. They want to force Jason Garrett to listen to Kellen Moore, who apparently will be more flexible. We'll see. It's the biggest question of this offseason. I continue to say it. I don't care who they sign or who they draft or what. They have enough great players to win. They do. The Cowboys are not solid they're not solid at all 53, but nobody is. They're not solid at all 22, but nobody is. Everybody has holes. Even teams that have spent tons of money are going to spend money on players that are going to become holes. It happens all the time. Every year in free agency, there are bad contracts that are signed and players that stink that get tons of money. That's why they don't do it. It's probably the right approach. It probably is. Bradley Grimson, how about Sendejo from the Vikes? He should be cheap and finds the ball a little lax in coverage, though. Yeah, I mean, and Sendejo's from San Antonio, and actually it was out of Rice. I actually know Andrew Sendejo, but out of Rice was on the Cowboys practice squad, and then he's probably already played his best football. But yeah, I mean that's what they're gonna do. I mean, Adrian Phillips, Sendejo, They're going to bring in, I believe they're going to sign somebody in a free agency at strong safety. It's not going to blow anybody away, but you know what? That's okay. It's not a position you have to spend tons of money on. It's not. People that are enamored with how are they getting better at safety? It's safety. You can win with that. The Cowboys didn't lose to the Rams because of Jeff Heath, although he was bad. But they didn't. If they had a more flexible coaching staff and a more flexible offense, they probably would have put up more points. And that's what they needed to do in that game. The Patriots had you have to be able to do in one game or one quarter something that could be look at the Patriots in the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Because everybody's like, the comeback to they have to score more points is, well, look at the Super Bowl. They don't need a pass, just good defense and low scoring. Okay, but look at the game before that. Look at the AFC title. Look at the NFC title. Those are high-scoring games. The Patriots, they needed to play one style one week and then a different style the next week. You have to be multiple. You have to be multiple. But it starts with being a more consistent and better passing attack. Sean Moore, did Trey Boston sign? I don't know. Good question. Ray Pierce, they didn't get your wide receiver from the Chargers. That's right. The Raiders signed him, Tyrell Williams. I don't even know what the terms of the deal were. But I knew they weren't going to sign him. I mean, I thought maybe they'd sign Earl Thomas. Maybe. Not at what he got. If the market kind of came down a little bit on him, then maybe. But I didn't actually. I mean, I just thought they should sign him. I knew they weren't going to sign him, Tyrell Williams. But I liked him a lot. And I mean, he's going to be pretty good with Antonio Brown. If only they have a quarterback that can throw him the football. Gregory Davis on the Dallas Cowboys America's team page says, what about trading Byron Jones for a first-round pick? I know Ties to the West Coast Cowboys mentioned that. So who are you taking in the first round then with that pick? So how does everybody feel about trading Byron Jones for a first-round pick? Which we can kind of, I guess, get into that now, because this kind of the main topic today was, all right, so who's the odd man out? So kind of Byron Jones has seemed to be, from everybody, like Dak, Tank, Zeke, Amari, Byron Jones. It's like, oh, not pay Byron. Okay. What's your rationale for that for most people? It is, well, he's a good corner, but he doesn't manufacture turnovers, which is not great. It's not you need a corner that has a propensity to turn teams over. So he was first team All-Pro, Byron Jones, the best corner in the NFL according to the NFL, according to the writers. I mean, the first team All-Pro, best corner in football last year, without many picks. That's hard to do. So you're trading Byron Jones for a first-round pick, something that my buddy Tyson, the West Coast Cowboy from Dallas Cowboy Scouting, has brought up. And so my question is, what are you doing at corner? And who are you drafting? What position are you drafting? Because the funniest thing I've heard is, Cheeto. He could be your number one. Cheeto has horrible ball skills. Like, I was singing Cheeto's praises coming out of camp, and he's there. Like, he is great in coverage. The problem is he's terrible ball skills. So, like, the idea that Byron Jones has bad ball skills and can't create turnovers, so let's replace him with Cheeto sounds so stupid because Cheeto's ball skills are bad. Now, maybe they can improve, but at this point, to say, like, well, Cheeto's the guy, it's like, we'll see. But, man, there were times where he's right there. If he could only play the ball, he'd make a play, and what do you know if they make a big play over the top on Cheeto because he has bad ball skills. Jesse Murphy, Byron Jones helped our secondary so much this year, shut down half the field most of the time. Yeah, I agree. William White says they're eyeing Golden Tate and Eric Berry now. Yeah, Berry, if I'm signing Eric Berry, it is really cheap. I just don't know that some team's going to step in there and like pay him too much money. He's missed. Just look how many games Eric Berry's played in the last couple of years. Like, Eric Berry's a huge name. At one point was a great safety, but has not played a lot of football. I mean, obviously he had cancer, came back from that, amazing, but he's just had injuries the last 2 years, played very few games. I would rather sign Adrian Phillips or Kenny Vaccaro. Like, I'd rather sign a guy that's shown a consistency to be able to play. Because if you sign Eric Berry, there's a good chance that Jeff Heath becomes your starting safety the majority of the year, right? So for everybody that doesn't want Jeff Heath, don't sign Eric Berry, because who has any confidence that Berry is available for 16 weeks? I don't. Andy Kai says, I fully expect his name to be spelled Cheeto. Well, his name's Chidobe Awuzie. Dan Easley says, I want Adrian Phillips. Bro, he's a monster. It's funny because Dan Easley's a Sooners fan, and Adrian Phillips, Kenny Vaccaro, who Bray Pierce names, both Texas guys. There's 3 Texas Longhorns at safety on the open market. Earl Thomas, not in the open market anymore. Kenny Vaccaro and Adrian Phillips. But yeah, I like Adrian Phillips. I mean, if it's Eric Berry or Adrian Phillips, I know that Berry's the bigger name, higher upside, but I just can't trust that he's gonna be healthy enough to be able to replace Jeff Heath. That's the problem. William White says Vaccaro's off the board. Is he? Who did he sign with? Man, I should keep up with that. Who did Kenny Vaccaro sign with? With the Titans. He re-signed. Okay, good. That's Bob Heck says that now. Okay. Sean Moore. Yeah, the Chiefs didn't either because they signed the Honey Badger for Bank. Right. They paid twice as much as the Texans paid for the Honey Badger last year with the same production. Like the only thing different was like had same amount of interceptions, same amount of like he even had one forced fumble the year before, no forced fumbles this year. He had like 10 more tackles this year. Basically the same season. After 1 year, he's on the open market for all of the offseason and then signs at the end with the Texans for $7 million. I think it was like 5 with like incentives if you played in all games for 7. That's what he ended up getting, is $7 million. So he's coming off the season in the Cardinals he just had with the Texans and got double the money. Good move, Cal. The Chiefs are overpaying. I mean, the Chiefs paid for Orlando Scandrick last year. That should tell you where their secondary situation is. Nathaniel Taylor, trade Cooper. Literally the only guy that I'm like really comfortable with paying on this list is Amari Cooper. The only guy on this list that I'm like Dak I have questions about. Tank, I mean, Tank's a beast, but he's had surgery now for the last 5 years, so, he wants a long-term deal, and I'd be a little reluctant to give him a long-term deal, but probably still going to sign him. Byron Jones, it just depends on the price, and, I'm not paying him now because now is his highest value because he's just first-team All-Pro. Amari's the only guy on this list where I'm like, yeah, pay him. Yeah, he's going to get paid. But the problem, I know some people are saying, well, pay Amari now because you have the chance to get him for cheaper. I don't think that's true. Like, I just kind of having an idea or concept of Amari Cooper, like, I think the Cowboys, if they felt like they could sign him cheaper now, they would. They can't, so they're not going to. I don't think, like, I think Cooper believes his value is higher than in actuality, which means he's not really willing to take a cheaper deal to get paid now. He'd rather just wait until you have to pay him, and and plus you want to keep him motivated, right? George Aloka, nice strong safety. But remember, the Cowboys said no to all these guys last year. Travis, Cactus, Jack Scott. Cowboys should have gotten Nick Foles on YouTube. Seriously? Should have paid Nick Foles $88 million over 4 years? Seriously? No, they shouldn't have. Like, that's an opinion, but it's the wrong opinion. Sorry, Cactus Jack, but no, they shouldn't have. They should not have paid Nick Foles $4 at 88. Because as bad as you think Dak is, Nick Foles is worse. James Palmer says, so if you don't pay Tank, do you trade him to get something in return out of him? I didn't say I wasn't paying Tank. I said I understand when the Cowboys aren't, like, 4 surgeries in 5 years. He played the entire season with a torn labrum, which I know a lot of people are making this point too. Like, they should have paid Tank last year. He would have signed for $17 million a year. That would have been a better deal. Does Tank play in all the games this year with a torn labrum if he just signed a long-term contract? Do you think he does? I don't. I think he played all the games this year because he was trying to get the long-term contract. If they gave him a long-term contract last year, it would have been cheaper, but he would have played in half the games, and there might not be a playoff team because of it. So, look, DeMarcus Lawrence is a game wrecker. He's a beast. He's a top 5 defensive player in the league. He changes games. He can change games for you. He's a game wrecker. There are very few players like him. But I think he wants 5-6 years. I think he wants $20 million annually. He probably wants $60 to $80 million guaranteed. $60 to $80 million guaranteed. I'm struggling on that. That's what I struggle with. Because, like, what are the chances he gets a 6-year contract and you're paying him $20 million annually? And he's what's the chances you get to 6 years down the road for a guy that's had 4 surgeries in 5 years and you're not regretting that? Like, that's like, he's a beast. I want to pay him. He needs to be on this team next year. The problem is it sucks. I mean, these are the things you have to think about, right? Like, they need him on this team. They can't trade him and replace that production. They can't. But I also worry about, long term. Somebody said that, like, Nick Foles, why do people love quarterbacks that they only see once or twice, right? Like, oh, he won a Super Bowl. Yeah. He hit magic once. He won a playoff game this year because the Bears missed a kick from 36 yards. If not, he loses a playoff game because he was bad. Because he's not a good quarterback, and he got paid 4 years, $88 million. And then people want to replace Dak, who at this point is at his worst average, but has plenty of room to grow as long as, there's a better offensive scheme developed around him that's more flexible. Eric Wilson says, well, if we don't, someone will, Ari. You're talking about paying DeMarcus Lawrence long-term money. Right, but somebody paid Nick Foles 4 years, $88 million. So, yeah, that's not like that's the whole, if somebody else jumped off the cliff, would you too? Look, I do think the Cowboys need to make a decision on him in terms of, are they going to just swallow the pill and sign him to a long-term contract, even though they know it's not going to be, the production's not going to be there at the end, or trade him, see what you can get for him. And then there's the whole surgery thing. Eric Wilson says, and if he sits and doesn't get the surgery, then it will be a half a season at the same money. True, but it's not. That would not be a good decision by DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, that's a bad decision by DeMarcus Lawrence. That would be stupid. It would be bad advice. Just like Le'Veon Bell got bad advice and turned down more money. Le'Veon Bell got bad advice, and so missed out on $13 million last year and ends up signing for $13 million this year. That's $13 million he will never get back. I don't care what he says or how he feels. That's dumb. That is objectively a stupid thing to do. He said bye-bye to $13 million last year. Bye-bye. And now that's what he's signing for. And if DeMarcus Lawrence delays his surgery on a torn labrum and sits out part of the year because of it, do you think he's going to get the next year what he already turned down? The answer is no. The answer is a resounding no. Cole Peterson, go get Golden Tate now. The Cowboys' success depends on Golden Tate. I like Golden. I like Golden Tate. He obviously killed the Cowboys this year when he was with the Lions. Luckily, didn't exactly kill them. Kind of killed the Bears. Nick Foles didn't really beat the Bears. Cody Parkey's missed field goal did, and Golden Tate had some big plays against him. I like Golden. It's not like you have to now go. Go get Golden Tate now. Like he's, they're gonna wait. And I'm assuming at this point Golden Tate's like, no, I'm firm here. This is what I think I'm worth. And so the Cowboys are like, okay, come talk to us later. The Cowboys are going to let the players fall through the cracks and then pounce and get guys on cheap deals that are motivated. I don't think it's the worst approach. I don't think the Cowboys personnel is that bad. I think their Cowboys personnel is championship level. This personnel, young team, has won 2 division championships in 3 years. They have bad coaching. They have coaching that can't win in the Super Bowl. Can't win in the playoffs. That's the problem. Nathaniel Taylor, 10 sacks. Nathaniel, I love you, but you don't know football, buddy. I'm sorry. If you're gonna look at Tank sacks, Tank had a better year last year than he had the year before when he had 14 sacks. So he had 4 less sacks and still had a better year. Why? Because he's a dominant player against the run, and then his ability as a premier pass rusher opens up plenty of sacks for other guys. DeMarcus Lawrence was an absolute beast. If you're gonna say he wasn't elite because he only had 10 sacks, you're missing so much. Like, are you a troll, Nathaniel? Are you a troll? I can't tell. TJ Carpenter says, if coaching is the problem, then Jerry and Stephen Jones are really the problem. Yeah. Insofar as they won't fire him. Yeah, I agree there. But, so on the one hand, Stephen and therefore Jerry have done a really good job in building up a really talented roster. A championship level roster. On the other hand, they haven't fired and replaced Jason Garrett with a better coach. It's fair. Which is also, their responsibility. It's very fair. Ryan Dye, what do you think about moving Cheeto to safety and bringing Jordan Lewis at corner? Um, I'd rather. I think corner's a more important position than safety. So, um, look, guys, Jordan Lewis competed with Anthony Brown for the nickel corner spot and lost, and rightfully so. So people love Jordan Lewis, and I'd love to see him play at a higher level. But at this point, the belief that people have in Jordan Lewis exceeds what we've actually seen from him. Jordan Lewis was given equal footing. You go compete with Anthony Brown. You guys are on the same level. Go compete. And Anthony Brown won the job. So why aren't people putting more stock in Anthony Brown than they are Jordan Lewis? Anthony Brown's shown us more. Anthony Brown has been an elite corner. He was an elite corner his rookie year. He was bad his second year, and he was pretty good last year. So why aren't people saying, what about moving Cheeto to safety and use Anthony Brown at corner in Cheeto's spot as the number 2 corner? Howard Dunlap, go get a pocket pass. We need a quarterback. Okay, should they go get Nick Foles? Is that who they should go get? 4 years at $88 million? I mean, it's not that I disagree on the assessment of Dak. It's that I think after 3 years, let's compare him with his contemporaries. Carson Wentz, Jared Goff. Okay, so statistically speaking, Dak's on that same level with those guys. First round picks, first overall, second overall pick. Carson Wentz hasn't been available at the end of the season. That's a problem, right? He hasn't played a playoff game. Carson Wentz hasn't played a playoff game despite the fact that his team's been to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl, and went to the playoffs last year, right? So that's a problem. I mean, Dak is also, and this was kind of. So did y'all hear Jason Hatcher on with the Bennett Skin Show the other day? So Jason Hatcher, Cowboys former pass rusher, he was blowing. I mean, he was fire to everybody. He was calling Romo. He even called out Dak. He called out Dak and then talked about how great Dak was. But I mean, Wade Phillips was sabotaged by Jason Garrett. But he was just. That's my Godzilla impression, I guess. So this is the most important thing that he said with Bennett Skin.
Romo do not have the ability to make people around him want to go and want to play for him.
I see. You're talking about leadership.
Leadership.
Is that something where as a player you can address it or you just stay out of it? When you were in that locker room,
they had a big write up. I jumped on his butt.
You did what?
In front of everybody. It was after the Kansas City reminder at the Kansas City game. It was supposed to just be us, and I kind of jumped on him you got to do more. I don't want to hear every day we got to keep chopping wood. I don't want to hear that. Do something. Let's hang out. Let's get to know each other. Don't come in after you done chill with Jerry, go to Duke, in the press box with him, and then come down here and try to relate to people that's about the players. I don't respect nobody like that. I'll take Dak any day over that. And Dak right now will win your championship way before Romo. That's just my opinion.
Wow, and you just said that. You said that right after you said Dak hadn't shown you enough to really get paid because he's hiding him.
Just think about right now how freaking hard that defense play. You know why? Because they respect their leader. That's why. It's a difference. Tom Brady, they have the it. The guy up in San Diego, Phillip Rivers, they got the it. They real people. You can relate to them. They in the locker room. Tom Brady, he treat the freaking janitor like he treat the boss. That's what set fire. That's why people love me to this day. My teammates call me right now. It ain't nobody I can't get on the phone with. Everybody respect me because I'm in the same fire you in. I'm not gonna go chill with the owner and the coaches. That ain't my place. I'm a team player. I'm about the players, and that's why Romo lost the team. That's why he didn't have absolutely no respect. Maybe for Witten and all the other guys that the guys that was up there making all the money. They put them in a group. Before it's the real people that goes to war, the real authentic people, no respect at all.
Okay, so Jason Hatcher on the Bennett Skin Show, and so I'm seeing Sean Moore, and a lot of people have said this. He's bitter. Bitter about what? What's he bitter about? He's bitter that the Cowboys didn't pay him? Who cares? Somebody else paid him. The Cowboys, I mean, this is what they should do. this is the whole. Everybody complains about the fact they don't sign free agents. It's like, but this is what they do. They make the right decisions on guys. Hatcher had a career year, then went and signed tons of money with the stupid Redskins, who go pay a bunch of players stupid money, and then they're bad. Everybody wants the Cowboys to do that because I don't know. You want to duplicate the Redskins, but like, so why would he be bitter? What? I think it's funny that, like, because I work with Jesse Holley, and sometimes Jesse will criticize players or Romo and be like, "You're bitter. Bitter about what? What's Jason Hatcher bitter about? Seriously, what's Jason Hatcher bitter about?" So, I love Romo. I love Romo. I always defended him. I think the people that thought he was a bad quarterback were probably off base. But what he said about Romo that's not news. When Dak, if we can remember 2016, Dak's rookie year, there was the whole thing about Dak. These are things that came out in 2016 that we knew, that Dak was inviting guys to his house, and it was like, we'd never been to Romo's house. And then remember, then middle of the year, Romo all of a sudden invited everybody to his house. It was like, oh, all of a sudden now he's trying to keep up with Dak. This isn't news. This is not news. We already knew this in 2016. So people are like, Jason Hatcher's bitter. Bitter about what? What's he bitter about? He got paid. He doesn't care. Jason Hatcher is bitter about people not knowing who Jason Hatcher is. I mean, I think people don't want to hear that about Romo and therefore call him bitter. Now, Jason Hatcher said a lot of things, and a lot of them are probably untrue, or not necessarily untrue, but probably not. It's the way he saw it, maybe not the way the world sees it. But with Romo, we don't need Hatcher to tell us this because we knew it. Go back to 2016. Dak's rookie year, he galvanized the locker room. He galvanized that locker room. Because here's the thing about leadership, right? If there's one guy in that locker room, or if Jason Hatcher is the only guy in that locker room that feels that way, then that's bad leadership on the part of Romo. It is, right? Let's compare him to a great leader. Michael Irvin's a great leader. Michael Irvin is a great leader. You talk to anybody, any Jason Hatcher that played with Michael Irvin, anybody, people in the practice squad, nobody would say that about Irvin. Nobody. That's great leadership. Understanding different components of players and personalities and friendship and love and brotherhood. That eluded Romo. Romo was a great player, but the idea that he was a great leader is invalidated by this, and this is not Hatcher. We saw this in 2016. We heard players saying this when he was at the Duke game with Witten and Jason and Jerry. This isn't news. This is the way that it was. That's not great leadership. Irvin was a great leader. Great leaders, there was nobody that played for the Cowboys as long as Michael Irvin was there, practice squad or otherwise, that would have anything negative to say about Irvin because he loved every single one of those people. Not all the time, but everybody loves him, raves about him as a teammate, cared about them as people. This stuff matters, guys. If you don't think it matters, then you're missing the whole component to sports and what makes people successful, period. People are saying, well, Aikman didn't have a buddy-bear relationship with everybody. Yeah, but Aikman was a leader on that team. Michael Irvin was a leader on that team. They needed Irvin to step up to be that guy, because Aikman wasn't. And it also don't misplace buddy with relationships. Are you married? Do you have friends? Are you are you always get along with your friends? Do you always get along with your family? Do you these are kinds of things that people that have a love or a brothership don't always get along. They fight, they disagree, but they're there for each other. They know that they're there. These are things that when you look at and find championship caliber teams, that's what they have. And that's what those Cowboys were missing. And the reason I bring this up, and the reason this is important, why is this important today? Because everybody that don't, Eric Leone says, come on, Ari, don't be naive. Oh, okay, indulge me, Eric. How am I being naive? In what capacity am I being naive? Please, indulge me, please. Because all of the Romo didn't have what Dak has. Now, Dak doesn't have what Romo has, right? But Dak's only 3 years in. We're judging Romo on 10 years. But Romo didn't have the component that Dak clearly has. And people that kill Dak, that come on my streams and are like, they need to replace the quarterback. He sucks. They're completely downplaying the leadership component, the galvanizing a locker room component, the things that he's saying. This stuff matters because Hatcher's saying it because he was on that team and he felt that way. And if one guy feels that way, it's indicative of misplaced leadership. We're not understanding true leadership. I worked in San Antonio. I covered the Spurs. Great leader, Greg Popovich. Great leader. Great leader. He should write a book on leadership. So, covering the finals, just an anecdote, right? Covering the NBA finals, and I was at practice, and they're stretching. It's a bunch of people, like hundreds of media members watching grown men stretch. It's really a hilarious thing. What's Pop doing? He spent the majority of the stretch talking to a guy that's not going to play. Right? He goes and says hello to Tim Duncan. He goes and says hello to Tony Parker. He goes and says hello to Kawhi Leonard. Right? And then he stops and talks to Joe Nobody for 20 minutes. That's what Hatcher's talking about. Joe Nobody doesn't believe that he's part of the team dynamic when you've got a leader that's not caring about that person. When you've got a coach like Pop who at the walkthrough before an NBA Finals game, spends 25 minutes talking to Joe Nobody. That's leadership, guys. Eric Leone. Hatcher is clearly bitter. Romo played with broken ribs, punctured lung, carried the team on his shoulders for years, and he wasn't a good leader. All those things are true. That doesn't also invalidate his comments about caring for guys. Like, again, this is not bitter shit. Why do you think he's bitter? Even if you do. Even if you think he's bitter. This is exactly what happened in 2016. Do we not? Don't be naive, Eric. Do you forget what happened in 2016 when Dak Prescott became the quarterback and he galvanized locker room because he was friends with everybody or he had people over and he was like, these guys were going to Dak's house and they were hanging out and they were all like, well, Romo never had us to his house. Like, people said that in 2016. So, yes, leadership is not just one thing. Leadership is not just, I'm going to play through broken ribs and punctured lungs, which, yes, Romo is a great player and criminally underrated. And he did put this team on his back for a long time and drag them as close as he get it to the finish line. But you're missing so much of what's important in sports if you don't hear what Hatcher's saying. And then not just knock Romo for not doing it, but more seeing that Dak has that and then not recognizing how important that is. The physical component to football, the Romo stuff, is important. But it's not everything. It might even be 50-50. But I'm the naive one. Because, right, Romo, played and won a must-win game in Washington, converting a fourth and whatever it was to DeMarco Murray with a punctured lung, or was that the broken ribs one? Right. I mean, that's insane. Don't take my feelings on this as not seeing how unbelievable Romo was and underrated he is and was. But that's also a part of leadership. I trade Romo in his prime for Dak and Jason effing Hatcher in a heartbeat. I'd trade Romo in his prime for Dak and okay. TJ Carpenter brings up race. No, I don't think so. I mean, the thing is, it's not a 50-50 thing, right? Like, it's not on Hatcher to go and talk to Romo. It's on Romo to bring together the guys. That's what leadership is. I'm not a great leader. I'm not. Everything I know about leadership comes from watching Greg Popovich and the things that he does, and there's so much involved in being a really good leader. That's why there are very few good leaders. There are very few. Very few. Like, look at the history of the world. The amount of leaders that are really good, that do everything. Check off every box in leadership. It's so few. It's so few. Right? Like, and that's, I don't know the other components of leadership that Dak has. I know that he has that, and I know that that's important. It's not everything, but it's important. Eric Leon says, fair enough. Romo had a style of leadership which was on the field. Dak was trying to win everyone off the field. I'll say it this way. There are tons of components of leadership. Tons of them. Dak doesn't have all of them. Romo didn't have all of them. One thing that Dak does have that Romo doesn't is that. You might characterize it as being off the field versus on the field, but the off the field stuff affects the on the field stuff. That's the thing that's, I always quote this, but it's really important. Isaiah Thomas, the book of basketball by Bill Simmons, the whole premise of the book, the secret to basketball, has nothing to do with basketball. It's about everything else. It's about the plane rides, the dinners, the hotel rooms. When you cover a team, you watch them play, and that's a part of it, but it's like very little. It's very little. When you cover a team, you watch for everything else. You watch for how the players engage with each other, how they are in the locker room, are there cliques, what you watch for how they are in games, how they, what's their demeanor on the sideline, you watch for everything. That's the stuff that matters more than anything else. There was a year I covered the Spurs where I didn't go to any games because I just had a kid, and it was right around the same time as the Spurs season. I didn't go to any games. I was like, I don't need to go. There's never been a more clear point in my life in which you can't cover a team unless you go to games. You can't. You're just watching them on television. The things you see on television are just, like the things between the lines are just a small part of it. That's what Isaiah Thomas is saying. When you're on a team, when you host a talk show, okay, in my career, I hosted a daily 3-hour talk show. I've hosted a daily 4-hour talk show. When you have a co-host, you're married to that person, right? You are. You spend 4 hours a day locked in a room with that person every day. That is such intense time. So think about athletes. Think about how much time these guys spend so much more time with each other than they do their wives and their families. If you don't have a guy that brings everybody together, they're not going to always get along. That's not going to happen. But you have to have a group that has a common respect, love, admiration. They're not going to always get along. But if you don't have that, you don't have anything. You're not going to win. It's really hard to win. It's really hard to win. There's so many things you need to have, right? We've talked about all of it here. You have to have good players. Cowboys have good players. You have to have good coaching. Cowboys don't have good coaching. You have to have a team that comes together, that is not always going to get along, but has an admiration and respect and love, and everybody's pulling on the same rope. That stuff matters. Was Romo a bad leader? I think there were parts of Romo that were a good leader. Romo was a great player, criminally underrated. I mean, played through things that I wouldn't be able to roll over in bed with. Like if I had collapsed lung, I'd be complaining and screaming and wailing and not getting out of bed or rolling over in bed. Romo went and played a football game. That's insane. That's insane. Like literally, that's not any, none of us are wired to do that. That's unbelievable and deserves an unbelievable amount of respect, but it's not everything. That's why winning is hard. There's so many factors. So many factors that have to be in play in your control, and then there's factors outside of your control. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Showtime on Phantom. I'm back tomorrow. Appreciate your time today. If you don't, please go like the page, facebook.com/Watch Phantom. A shout out to Michael Lafferty and Nathaniel Taylor, Carrie Teagle, Joe Tranchina, Rick Shelker, Sean Moore, who a jokingly bad attempt at a hot take. Just because you disagree with it doesn't mean it's a hot take. Like, that's the worst part of our society. Seriously, like, when you disagree with an opinion, you're like, it's a hot take. No, that's dumb. That's just stupid. Don't be so obtuse, Sean. Wayne Gibson, Neil Favre, Chris Bennett, Kerry Teagle, Omar Bagat, Bradley Grimson, Joe Dell Lynch, Jance Mason. Thank you, everybody. Eric Leon, Cole Peterson, all you guys that are here every day, that are part of this conversation, part of this community, part of this family. Appreciate you all. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. But for now, I'm out, everybody.